Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome to another podcast, another episode of Drops Mic. And today we are talking with Layla, my friend from university, and we are two African young ladies. And today we're going to talk about African politics, current affairs, and the future. Yes.
Um, Thanks for having me again, Simi. I think I really had an amazing time the last time we talked. And yeah, I'm excited about this topic because I think it's super interesting. And yeah, very complicated as well. And it's been quite crazy too. So I'm keen to dig in. Should I have introduced myself? I'm Layla. Yeah, you introduced me already.
Yes, yeah. Guys, it's our humble origins of our podcast. Anyways, so yes, so we're going to talk about international relations as well. So let's start with the Ukraine war. Like that's the topical thing, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm actually a politics graduate. Um, and yeah, I'm from South Africa. So South
Mm,
Africa, South Africa's history with Russia is that South Africa has always leaned to, I guess you say, you don't really say the left, you just say South Africa has always leaned to communism, to socialism, because it was about moving away from the apartheid regime,
mm,
which was very capitalistic and exploitative. So, like labor rights, yes. So South Africa, because of apartheid, as you guys might know, hopefully, there's a history of um, it's minority rule. So the white people, they ruled oppressively over the politics and the economics of the country,
mm,
and they worked to keep the black people subjugated
yeah.
financially through it's an unequal economic relationship. So the white people were the employers and black people were the laborers. So yes, so then in terms of labor's rights and like trade unionism and all of that, that was really huge in South Africa. So South Africa has always been pro Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union helped train the African resistance, the military ring of the ANC, which is called Mpoto Wesizwe, and so yeah, and then also there were members in exile. So there's like a history with the liberation movements in South Africa with Russia and I want to say pro labor rights, and so it's kind of still to this day has ramifications. And as a result, it seems like the ANC is leaning towards supporting Russia in the invasion of Ukraine. So, yeah, what I personally think about that is that I. I just want more peace. I don't know. I don't know if Putin's a dictator or what kind of leader is he. Um,
Oh, this is Putin. Attack on Putin.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. So I'm pro democracy, and I just don't think it was democratic, and it wasn't peaceful. And I don't want to use peace in the sense of like kumbaya, but like I I think it was a little bit nefarious that Putin went in. I feel like Ukraine was innocent in that whole ordeal. That's how I personally feel about it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I actually didn't know that Russia was supporting South Africa during apartheid. Um, so yeah, it makes a bit of sense why then South Africa is starting to lean towards Russia. But South Africa at the same time also is very liberal. So I would have also expected South Africa to lean with the West. Um, yeah, but that is interesting. Um, with Kenya, I know that, okay, I'm speaking on behalf of Kenya because I'm Kenyan. but I've lived in South Africa for a while. I feel that Kenya, I know that Kenya has been supporting Ukraine, definitely. We even had like a member, like an ambassador, or yeah, I think an ambassador who spoke at the UN when the war started, and he really put his sentiments about why the war, it was before the war had started, and why the war would not be a good idea. And he was telling Putin that, I know that you're nostalgic about the olden days when you had the Soviet Union, and all these countries were like under like the Russian, leadership. And you might also have sentiments about the people of Ukraine being very similar to Russian people. Like you speak similar languages, you have a similar culture, and you might feel like you must integrate with this country because of how similar you are. And he said that Africa also suffers from like some similar kind of nostalgia. We were split up without people taking into account whether our brothers were thrown on the other side of the border. And in many African countries along the border, many people speak the same languages, and many people have similar culture. And yes, it was heartbreaking to have to be nationalized in that sense without our colonizers caring to know to divide Africa up in a way that suits Africans and the communities, the different ethnic groups in Africa. But he also said that it's also not fair to go and attack another country just because of these sentiments that happened long time ago. That we must rather move forward than start this war. So that's what this Kenyan ambassador said at the UN. So definitely Kenya has been on this. Kenya is very good friends with America. And I think a bit of that, they've always been friends, but particularly when Obama became president and Obama having roots in Kenya, it kind of really cemented the relationship that Kenya had with the US. So, yeah, Kenya will definitely always support the US agenda. Do I feel, but I definitely think that US triggered this war. I think they've been making lots of nations around Russia join the NATO, and that made Russia very paranoid. And when Ukraine started negotiations about joining NATO, I think that's what triggered Putin into. There are many reasons why Putin wanted to start the war, apart from him being very nostalgic about the Soviet Union and the power that the Soviet Union had, as well as feeling quite nostalgic about Ukraine people being very similar to Russian people, and that thinking that they should be one people. He also did it because he was paranoid about NATO coming. So I think there were some countries that were considered, they were not supposed to be members of NATO. Um, I I I don't know much about that history, but yes, US trying to make countries around Russia part of NATO really made him paranoid. I'm also sure the pandemic had something to do with his bad mental health. Like he was probably, uh, yeah, yeah. So yeah, the West. I feel like the West is equally to blame for the war, and they mustn't do what they usually do, which is pretend that they are saviors, because they have, you know, they have some stake in this, big time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah. I know that Finland recently joined NATO or something.
Even
Yeah.
recently joined NATO, like a lot of European countries that were initially, a lot of even Eastern European countries are starting to join NATO. And that has really been making Putin a little paranoid.
Yeah. So I guess it's just one of those things, like, you in power and you see people, it's making moves in the world and they're taking up territories, and you like feel like, no, you need to expand your land.
Yeah. Yeah,
I feel like it's a kind of yeah, I don't know if it says Game of Thrones, but it's like it's definitely like you see the map on the table, and they seeing territories being lost, and and he's kind of feeling like no, there was a time when I controlled all of this, and or my people controlled all of this, and we need to. I don't know. I think it's probably a power trip. I
it
don't
is.
know. Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards like Putin's having a power trip. Um, and it did affect us here in South Africa. There were rising costs of food and fuel. It really did affect us because honestly, when it first came, I kind of was like, I don't want to, okay. Just, I know that also a lot of, I think as a black person, you kind of felt like, I don't really see how that's relevant to me. Not that I really, you know what I'm saying? um,
Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of old school politics. We will see what ramifications it has in our day to day lives, and then it actually did have consequences where our price went up, and yeah, there was that whole thing on the border where like African students were trying to leave and they didn't have priority to seek
yeah.
refuge. Yeah, so there was that whole thing, and that was
That
yeah.
was just. There was like, yeah, in the midst of the war, there was a bit of racism
Yeah.
where Africans, like you said, African students couldn't like get safety, or even a black Ukrainian people were not getting the same privileges that white Ukrainian people would get. Like, like I think the UK has been really obviously helping Ukraine a lot, and even telling its citizens to take in some people into their homes. But yeah, black people tended not to, get those benefits, unless of course like black British people took them in. But yes, there was
Yeah. So
mm, ra- the racist sentiments there.
yes, they were. They were. So yeah, we just hope for a peaceful solution. I saw China stepped in to negotiate um, a peace agreement with Ukraine, which is quite cool. I feel like because in terms of the communism, China is stronger than Russia and also as a global leader. So I feel like it's good that China stepped in to find a resolution.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't even know they did step in, but yeah, that is good. That's like, it looks like it's heading towards yeah, a better direction, because it could I was saying that it could quickly go into World War III, especially if China was to like decide to, back Russia, and then the US and China right now are having a lot of beef and a lot of tension. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So yes, we're here to talk about that, and we have a stake. By the way, we have a a seat at the table as women. We do to have a say in these macro politics because it affects us. So yeah, we don't want a World War III. I think that is entirely unnecessary. We like it. It's really the West and superpowers fighting for power, and they don't need to involve us. Like they used to say, America catches a cold, America sneezes, and the whole world catches a cold. So it's like something small happens, in so far away, and here we are in Africa. We have to pay for the price in fuel and price in bread increase as the whole world because there's a cost of living crisis. Yes,
Mm.
yes. So yes, yeah.
And we just came out of a pandemic as well. We also like the we have climate change problems that are happening. I saw that Madagascar has been hit by some very bad drought, and the UN said that it was one of the world natural disasters that are directly linked to climate change, and one of the biggest. So yes, and it's, I mean, yeah, carbon pollution is mostly happening in the West, and already Africa is paying for that. Um, yeah, so it's it's rough. Like,
Ye-
and yeah, if there is a war, yeah, if there is a war, actually, there's something very interesting that a member of the uh, like an AU representative was speaking about, like a few years ago. She's talking about how messed up, like post-colonial pacts that African leaders had to sign, especially for like francophone countries. When the French were giving West and Central Africa their independence, they told them to sign a pact, which was basically called the Pact of Continuation of Colonialism. Like they couldn't think of a more creative name. And they said that if the African leaders wanted their independence, they had to conform to certain things. And one of the things that they had to conform to is that France dictates, trains their military. They cannot be, and whenever France is in trouble, say if there's a world war, that these African countries have to be on the side of France. So you see, if the West are gonna have a war, there are some already long time ago. We like we were just pawns. We signed these pacts that made us pawns in this yeah situation. But
yeah.
yeah, a lot of other wild things were in that pact. I just found out about it like a few days ago, but I'll talk about it later. It's crazy.
Switch on the light. Okay. Yes. Yeah. And then yeah. So there's a whole. We can't believe that there's still a U.S. Russia tension all these years later. Um, and we can see that with the BRICS countries, they moved. So the BRICS countries are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And basically, it's a coalition to say that one of us is going to be the next superpower. Well, we hope. And we should kind of band together as people that are not, it's like the global south. I don't know if you heard of that. Like, the global south and Russia being like, okay, so then it looks like the next superpower is coming from one of us and we should start doing trade. Yes. And as a result, there have this talks of de-dollarization where we are moving away from using the dollar as the main trading currency. So it's
Mm,
kind of like de-westernization. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, even our president, the president of Kenya, William Ruto, was telling Kenyans that the Kenyans that have been hoarding dollars should be aware that that is not gonna that like they're gonna lose a lot of money if they keep hoarding dollars. Because the main currency of trade is gonna change soon. Because that's what happens in Kenya. I don't know. Whenever there's a shortage of something, people tend to hoard things. I'm sure it happens in other parts of the world as well.
Mm.
Yeah. What do you think the next currency might be? Do you think it's gonna be?
I think the Chinese have the best chance. Yeah. The yen. Yeah. But I think I'm one of those people that think America, the West is going to be strong to overcome the West. Um, yeah, we can
Gonna
see.
gonna be
Yeah,
hard to. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And we saw Trump. Yeah, Trump did the things. He,
Yeah.
he
Uh, I was I was so shocked just to see him. Yeah, like held like being accountable for all the things that he did. Like
yeah,
I was shocked and very impressed.
yes,
And,
they came home
and
to roost, as they say.
huh?
The chickens came home to roost.
Yes.
Yeah,
And that is an African American person that is the main persecutor for all these crimes. That was very boss.
Just the diplomacy these days. I don't know if there was ever a golden age of diplomacy, but Trump was really the bottom of the barrel. Like, yes. Yo, that
It
was bad.
is bad.
Yeah, I remember he was like, when he took over from Obama, they were like, "Are you still going to maintain good relations with Kenya?" And he was like, "I don't care about that, and I don't care about those shithole countries."
Mm. Yeah, he called all of the whole of Africa like a shithole. Like a, what? Yeah, he said shithole countries, and he referred to the whole of Africa. He was just ridiculous. I can't understand how he got into power.
Yeah, it was very much a case of any publicity is good publicity because, yeah, we just spoke about him too much. So, yes, we'll try not to speak about him too much here. um,
Yeah.
so, yes, there was something with the banks that happened. I don't know really what really happened.
Okay, so there was it was mostly Silicon Valley banks. They were banks that were supposed to help new upcoming entrepreneurs start off their businesses, particularly in tech. So what usually happens with the banks is that you give them your money, you place your money in the bank, and then you they keep 10% of your money, and the rest of the money they invest it. So they'll give the next business who wants to be loaned money to start their business. So there was a few problems that had happened with the bank. I've forgotten some of them, but they they kind of were panicking about um, they were not able to. I mean, the business. Okay, so they charge interest rates to people who borrow money from them, and because I think there was because businesses have not been doing well, they were not getting the kind of returns that they wanted. So and the same circle of people tended to use that bank, the Silicon Valley Bank. So I think word got around that these banks were unstable. And one thing that the bank never wants people to do is go and withdraw all your money at the same time. Because, like I said, they keep only 10% of your money, and then the rest of the money is circulating in the economy with businesses and loans for school and loans for this and that. And that's how like the economy basically runs. So yeah, so word got out that the banks were not doing well. The Silicon Valley Bank particularly was not doing well, and people started withdrawing their money from the banks. Like there was a whole line of people withdrawing their money from the bank. Now, also because the Silicon Valley bank was particularly funding businesses, people are withdrawing large sums of money all at a go. And usually, like I think the US has like this thing where they tell people that like around up until 250,000 will be reimbursed by the government if you lose your money because the bank has collapsed. So, um, but now because these were businesses, they had a lot more money than $250,000 because now they are paying, rent for the premises that they're having their businesses in. They are paying people, their salaries. Um, but okay, I've actually remembered what triggered all these problems. Like banks need to be very careful with how they're handling people's money. But I think during Trump's time, the Silicon Valley Bank had like they had some big banks, and the Silicon Valley Bank being one of them, had spoken to Trump, and they were like, "Oh, can't you like loosen the restrictions that you have on banks? Like like." And for some, and Trump seems to be wanting to just make the rich get richer, and somehow he like signed a bill that allowed less restrictions on banks. Before they would have to be like they'd have to be monitored on like a lot of the decisions that they would make. But I think that leeway kind of let the bank make some risks, and it trickled down into this mess. And yeah, basically the Biden government had to pay out all those people with taxpayer money. They had to pay them more than $250,000 just so that the rest of the country doesn't panic and everyone in the whole country takes out their money from every bank and completely fucking up the
Oh
American.
my goodness.
So yeah, it was big.
Wow.
They bailed out this bank, but now restrictions need to come back. And Elizabeth Warren is very smart about these things, and she's been like insisting that these banks there needs to be repercussions, because also the people, like the heads of this bank, kind of gave themselves a really big payout. They were like, okay, we are fucked, we can't pay these people, the government is going to intervene, we are not going to be allowed to have a bank again, so let's give ourselves these fat checks so that we know we're okay for X amount of time. But I don't know if they're going to be held accountable. I hope so, and I think they might. But yeah, they need to put back those restrictions on the banks, and yeah, because yeah, it's scary, and I don't think the government will be able to do payouts for every bank in America,
Yeah.
and people to also keep their money in the banks at the same time. We don't want people to put it um under their mattresses, because this money definitely helps the economy grow. So yeah, that was what happened. It was crazy.
I feel like it even affected here us in South Africa, because I know of two people who couldn't get their money from the banks, like from FNB even. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I think it's connected, because it's inexplicable why they can't get their money. Like the banks can't help them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So these people went to the bank to try and withdraw money, and the banks couldn't.
yeah, they could not help them. And they even went to head office in Joburg. So
Get
yeah,
their money. They had to go to head. They had to travel to Joburg.
they had to travel. Yeah, she went to the FNB offices. This lady that I know. Anyways, and yeah. So I think so. It's just yeah. I think yeah. There's definitely a little bit of irresponsible leadership going on, and people are not thinking about the person on the ground, and it's not, it's people everywhere in the whole world. It's not just, you know, I don't want to say it's not just about race or whatever. um yeah, so people, those bankers really need to understand that the whole world rests on America's economy. I know I think China has more of an influence now on global markets, but like when you are doing business, like it's going to affect a lot of people, so they shouldn't be irresponsible and trying to make the rich get richer, because I mean, how rich can you really get?
It's so crazy. Yeah. Because apparently, if all your needs are met, all your primary needs, and like education, food, a good living situation, you don't really need that much to make you happy. That is, yeah, that is what some people who try to study whether more money makes you happy. But yeah, um, I don't know why people want to be richer than they are, like crazy rich.
uh, you
I
you
think
don't
there's
ah, it's a little, I guess it's a greed, but it's a tale is all this time, like, so I guess people just need to overcome that. And yeah, so
yeah,
yeah, so the China really seems to be looking at as the other superpower that's rising, and they're more financially responsible, looks like. I don't know if I can make these claims, but it definitely seems their economy is strong, and they're making moves in Africa. So yes, so there's Sino-African relations, and in order for, see, what happened after colonialism is that a lot of the African nations were still dependent on their colonizers financially. So it was still the same. We export raw materials, and then we get the processed goods type of relationship. And Africa's raw materials are very valuable. I mean, we're talking about diamonds, gold, steel, timber, a lot of
Yeah.
natural resources that are vital, but we don't get the wealth of our country. So that is an injustice. And so it looks like a lot of African nations are moving to trade with China because of the you need to break this economic relationship that we have with the West.
Mm.
Yeah. So
And
with that, yeah.
uh, yes, I was gonna add. Remember when I had mentioned that this woman from the African Union, she was an African Union representative in the US or something. I'll remember her name and tell you. Yeah, when she was talking about like when colonialism ended and the African leaders had to sign these um like treaties before in order for them to get their independence. Some
Yeah.
of it made sure that Africa was still very dependent on the West, like the French Pact for Continuation of Colonization. They insisted that Africa had to, I mean, that these Western African countries would would use the franc, like a Western, like an East West African or Central African version of the franc, and that only France could print it for them. So
Uh,
that's really very much controlling like Africa and making Africa very dependent. On top of that, they say that um, because Africans can't handle their money, they must send 80% of their annual revenue to France, to the French bank. And so trillions of dollars literally leave Africa, poor Africa, and it goes to France, like for the and might be I don't know, maybe we have that. I have to research if that's also happening with like these anglophone countries, like countries colonized by the British. So now what the French people do, what the French government does when Africa is bringing it to the Reserve Bank of France, they are investing, like they're keeping the money for Africans, but they're also investing on that money on the French stock, and they're getting so much trillions of like returns from investing African money. And yeah, getting rich of
yeah.
Africa. Yeah. And also so many weird things were like they had to sign off. Basically any minerals that are in these countries or to be found later on in the future. Like France needs to be one of the first countries to be informed about this, and they have to like have a big share of any minerals found in Africa, and to process these minerals for these West African and Central African countries, previous French colonial states. So yeah, yes, there was a lot of dependence, but also this dependence was kind of tied to these treaties that we had to sign in order to get our independence, which kind of ensured that we were still colonized, basically.
Yeah, so then that leads us into the topic of neocolonialism, and yeah, like well, we still in this exploitative economic relationship. Yeah, the way that I see it is like it's like you had an abusive spouse, and
Mm.
he took all your money. Like you you were working, and he would, when it's time for you to get your paycheck, he shows up and collects the paycheck for you. Like he like proper patriarchy or whatever. Like
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, like chauvinism. Like it's almost chauvinistic. It's like Africa is this woman, and she's being downtrodden by this abusive ex-boyfriend who treated her like a mistress or whatever, but she raised his kids. She did everything. Like she 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 provides all the fruits like in the world, like all the, I don't know, there's so much fertile land in Africa,
Mm.
but we got the short end of the stick. And so it's kind of like we need to break these chains, and we need to negotiate our freedom. So it's like, let's say, it's like he's like an ex partner that's
Yeah.
abused. So, but people understand money. So if you talk in terms of economy, and you negotiate your equal economic beneficiary status, it really is possible, but you just kind of have to have the balls to do it. I think, yeah, like you can, like any woman can put a man in his place and
Yeah.
collect the money and take him to court and do all the things. So I really think Africa needs to include women in in our politics and in the future,
Yeah.
to to get these funds. I don't know, do you believe in that we need to get the funds for colonialism again?
Um, Funds for colonialism, like payback, basically.
Yeah, like repatronization, or no, I'm not sure if I'm using the right term. But like compensation for the loss, like for their profits, they need to give us some of their profits back. What we lost in natural resources.
Yeah. I definitely think that that should be like in place. But at the very least, they should have cancelled all our loans. Like every
Yeah.
loan definitely be forgiven because they have stolen a lot from us. Their economies were built on our backs. Whether it was through slavery with people taken from the motherland, Africa, the continent, or whether it was colonialism, they used us to grow their countries. And yeah, definitely cancel every loan that we have. And then we can start negotiating on, yes, some kind of like, yeah, payback, like repatriation. Is that what it's called? What is it called?
And I should know. I know it, but I just it's yeah. I don't know. There's some, for some reason it's just not coming to me, but it's basically like compensation, economic compensation
Oh,
for
that's,
for
oh, sorry.
no.
Oh, we are very far from that because even in negotiations with the West, like there's always been, it's very patronizing, very condescending. They are, they, they don't, they don't even, first of all, they're not remorseful for anything. And then second of all, they still have a very big, like a, they look down on Africa. And I think usually even when they have meetings with leaders from Africa, they never have, like the West never has like a proper agenda. They never let the African people leaders know in advance what they're gonna discuss, or even have input on what the African leaders will talk about. Like the African leaders don't have input on the conversations they're gonna have. Um, like recently, I think the West was kind of pushing for African leaders to have pro LGBTQ plus rights. Um, Otherwise, there would be some sanctions. Um, and yes, most African leaders are not pro LGBTQ plus, and I wish they were. But the leaders felt like it was very double standard. Like they don't force Saudi Arabia or like lots of these Arab countries
Um,
to conform, or else they'll get sanctions. But because Africa is, the continent that can be bullied.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey. Yeah. So yeah.
And yeah.
So yes, the Africa. Yeah. These the European nations. They're yeah they've bullied us. um. Yeah. So what do you think about the African Union? Let's talk about that also. Yeah.
I think that the African Union has failed us. Well, okay, like the African Union could really be discussing a lot of issues that are affecting Africa. But sometimes they have been getting payouts. Like I know Mugabe has paid the African Union like $1 million, and that kind of allowed him to be in power for as long as he was in power. Um, yeah, the African Union has not really intervened on issues affecting Africa or protected Africa from being exploited from the West by the West. Um, there was in 1963. I know there was the Berlin Conference, and during that conference, a lot of the previous like the leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere from Tanzania, Haile Selassie, they wanted, as soon as Africa got its independence, they wanted the African Union to speak with one voice, to trade with one voice, to have one currency, But there were a couple of countries, might be 7 African countries out of the 32 African countries that had attended the Berlin Conference. But then the other African countries, I don't know if they were sold this whole nationalistic agenda. They were like, let's just go slow. And I think these colonial countries had a part to do with that, like convincing some of the African nations to rather be nationalistic as opposed to, you know, like forming a united African Union. So, I mean, up until now, the African Union has not been able to meet those early dreams that those leaders had when Africa was gaining its independence. We still don't have an African Union with one voice. We still have visa issues when going to other African countries, which affects trade, which affects a lot of things that could have benefited our economy. Also, if we had like some unifying, like basically if we had what the European Union has, where they have the Schengen, what is called the visa, where they can travel. You get one visa from Spain. Yeah.
Yeah, they can travel within each other with like ease, kind of. Yeah.
Yes, and a lot of European countries also use the euro. Like a few of them don't, like the UK and might be some Scandinavian countries, but most of them use the euro, and that's really and they speak as one. Like whenever that's speaking to America or Africa, they tend to speak as the European Union, and they didn't want that for us. So these are things that now the African Union needs to try and implement if we are gonna survive, because the way things have been going, like yeah, and also you see the African Union would have been protecting like Central and Western Africa from being exploited by the French the way they've been exploited, like if Africa would speak with one voice, yeah, the the like France or Britain wouldn't have that much power. And every time there's been a coup, it's always because might be some African countries, some leaders like especially these coups tend to happen a lot in Western and Central Africa. They have, told like France, no, we want to print our own money, and it has led to a coup. Or whenever they've tried to have some form of independence and speaking as an individual country, yeah, and then France can pay like an opposition, like a opposition lead, like little group to overthrow the government. Yeah, so that definitely the African Union needs to come together
Yeah.
and yeah, make plans to implement the original, mandate that they wanted to have.
Yeah, because in Nkrumah, Haile Selassie, and Julius Nyerere, those were great. Those were like really epic people. Politically, they were excellent. And like Julius Nyerere was the first to say we must include our struggle is tied to the women's struggle. Our liberation struggle is tied to women's liberation. We can't have a free Africa when women are suppressed, And he was the first like revolutionary to say that. And as a result, there's the African Union, the women's division of the ANC, which was quite influential. Well, it used to be.
Mhm.
And it's just had a lot of ramifications in African politics. So yeah, those are really great, and those we should we should uphold those ideals because I feel like African people still believe them.
Yeah, they do. And I've also been hearing a lot of like African countries wanting to take up even Swahili as their national language, or like a language of communication, or because a lot of African countries speak um Swahili. And I feel like also that's taking back our power. We're using an African language as an official language of communication. So, like, so that maybe the West don't have cannot hear what we are talking about or know what we are discussing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would also be a power move. And I feel like, yeah, it's time. And a lot of Africans are now, well, even the Africans that were not on board before, I feel like they are on board with the African Union speaking with one voice. Because you can imagine a small country like Eswatini trying to, negotiate with China, where the population is the population, you cannot even compare. China has, like, I think almost 2 billion people, and Eswatini, I'm not sure, I don't think they have more than 2 million. Like,
Yeah.
now the stage is not fit. We need to speak as one continent if you're going to negotiate in ways that favor us, because most of these negotiations involve our minerals. Like, we are always getting the shorthand of the deal. And I feel if we speak as one continent, then our voice will be louder.
Yes. And I think we are actually one people.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and there's just so much opportunity for Africa. I mean, everybody loved Wakanda for Black
Mm.
Panther. Everybody loved seeing an African nation.
Flourish.
Yes, and it was because of the vibranium. It was because of the mineral. So we all loved that image, and we all were inspired. So we really do want to see a technologically advanced Africa.
Yeah, we definitely want to see that. And I think once the African Union speaks with one voice, those are the things that we will start seeing soon. Like, we will have more control of our minerals. We will, you know,
Even our banking, because even that the fact that they print the currency, like the the francophone countries are printing their money in France. That means they control the national reserve.
yes, basically. And like, if you have any trouble with France, they can just stop printing your money. And now you're in a state of, you're not stable anymore. Like, you're fucked, basically.
Yeah. So no. We need Africans to control African banks and African money, African wealth. We need to be in control of it. It's our inheritance.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And a lot has been stolen from us, so we need to, stop being, taken advantage of. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yes, definitely. So, what do you think about the future of technology in Africa and our, so, AI and stuff like that, and the metaverse or whatever?
Okay. I think that Africa is I believe that I don't think they want to be left behind in terms of, like, AI and all of those things. Like, I know in Kenya, people have been engaging, well, the youth have been engaging with ChatGPT quite extensively. And unfortunately, at the university level, lots of Kenyans have been using ChatGPT to do their assignments, which can be problematic. And like, the universities are now rushing to make things like Turnitin be able to detect whether an AI is doing assignments for their students. But I can speak for Kenya. Kenya has always been very advanced when it comes to technology. They've always been with on it. We even have this like M-Pesa thing. I don't know. It's like a mobile like transaction thing where you can pay for anything via your mobile phone. You can pay for your taxi transport, even if it's like 5 rand, with this mobile banking app. You can pay your fees with it. You can pay at with restaurants. Like even someone who doesn't have a bank account is able to operate and send and receive money using their mobile phone number.
Oh.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, Africa is definitely, realizing that technology is important and that we're having a technological revolution. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm just talking about like students using like AI. um I'm not aware if like companies have. Oh yes, I know AIs have taken a lot of jobs from a lot of tech people. Like we have Google here in Kenya as well, and recently like tens of thousands of people have lost their jobs, similar to how people have lost their jobs in Google, in the Western countries. So recently, very recently, like in March or so, yeah, lots of Kenyans lost their jobs. Yes, AI is also having those negative effects of now having the AI do people's jobs like coding. Now you don't need AI can code for you. You don't need so many software engineers coding a website for you, and AI can do it in literally seconds. So yes, the repercussions are being felt here as well. um yeah, it's a bit hard to like be able to forecast how the future will look. It's looking scary and exciting at the same time, might be more scary than exciting. Yeah, so especially in Africa. um but also Africa being the youngest continent, like lots of the most of Africans are like 30 and below.
Yeah.
And being the youngest continent, they are more tech savvy than like the older generation.
Oh,
What do you think about that?
that's cool. I never thought about that. Yeah, because I actually um I was watching a child on a laptop on an iPad, and that child was like a native user. Like they were just like, like yeah, there was a fifth limb there. Hey, I was like, oh my gosh, how? And I couldn't. A part of me was like, this is a bit um problematic, or we should be critical of this usage of technology being so part of these children's lives. I mean, they know how to. I'm pretty sure these children are gonna like learn how to spell, like from
Mm,
using an iPad, you
yeah.
know. Um, and I was a bit like thinking, oh no, it's 1984. This technology is gonna be the death of us. Like these kids, what are they like? What are they gonna learn? All they know is just like high instant gratification images like being thrown at them. Like, are they gonna be able to take a breath of fresh air and have a normal conversation that's not instantly gratifying? But
Mm,
but then when I look at what they watch, and yeah, and the videos they watch, is all very sweet, educational, and I think there's nothing to be afraid of, because yeah, ultimately we have to trust that these kids are gonna use technology like a native user. And I don't think the technology that's reflecting back at them like the Black Mirror, I don't think it is malicious. Okay, maybe some of it is, but I think ultimately it's a good voice. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I also feel like the parents need to be very hands-on and kind of control how like what sites kids can have access to.
Yeah, so I'm using particularly YouTube, like kids YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah.
like love that. Yes, and yeah, because I used to be very should I guess I used to be into, I am still into spirituality, but you're always like, you spend time in nature, and you must, you know, talk to people and socialize, but particularly spending time in nature and being grounded. So you think, these kids are not going to be grounded, or they're not going to know how to, they're not going to have like they're not going to be that well socialized. But I think they'll be different from us, but they're going to be really educated. And it's a good thing,
Yeah,
ultimately. Yeah.
yeah, they'll definitely be so much more educated than we are because they have all the information at the tip of their fingers, and they can learn anything, watch a video, know what's happening. Yes, I feel like it's gonna affect their social skills. Their mental health as well will probably get affected because, yeah, we know social media is very bad for our health, for our mental health at least. Um, yeah, they have like psychologists on board these tech companies that make social media addictive,
Yeah.
and they use the same like addictive mechanisms that people like the way their brains fire when they take actual drugs.
Yeah, and like gambling as well. Yeah.
Ye-
So yeah, it is something. It is, yeah, something to think about. I'm just eternally an optimist. So everything I'm gonna say is gonna have an optimistic spin. But yeah, I was first like, oh my gosh, these kids, they're not gonna like, like, no, like, you must smile, like,
Mm.
and and they're not gonna be, yeah, they're not gonna breathe fresh air. They're gonna like sit cooped up in their room and just like ding ding ding, like like weird
Yeah.
sounds coming from the iPad, and they think that's so great. Um, so I think we're
Yeah.
just gonna have to trust in the consciousness that's in the technology, that it's not bad for the kids, because it's just like AI. Like, can you trust that consciousness? Personally, I don't think I can trust AI. I don't think I will ever use it. I hope. I don't know if it's famous last words, but I don't think I'll ever use it. I don't think it's writing. Um, and it's a little bit scary.
Yeah, no, it is scary. It's definitely scary. Yeah, you could, yeah, like you don't know, yeah, there is no consciousness. Some Google guy, I needed to watch that video. Like there was a guy who worked in Google who said that he thinks that AI has a conscience. But I haven't really looked into that, and I want to hear his argument for that. But yes, it's risky stuff. Yeah. It's yeah, it's it's tricky.
Yes, and as an African, you have to wonder whether that conscious that it has, is it not just the amalgamation of all these Western men's like beliefs, So like AI, is it really neutral? Is it, or is it, yeah? Because I mean, even in research, they've showed that objectivism doesn't is not representative for people to produce knowledge that are from African and let's say indigenous knowledge systems. Yeah, like, it's not, because there's a power dynamic. So there's a knowledge producer and the knowledge receiver. So classically, like, objectivism, I think it's been kind of proven in the social sciences, that it's more about the multiple realities, and we need to um yeah, we need to move more into like discourse analysis and those type of forms of knowledge, so that, because it ends up taking the default perspective is a Eurocentric perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what the AI is feeding off on. Like the information that they're getting is information that's on Google, on the internet, pro-Western information. So yeah, that is the same information that the the AI is using, you know. Yeah, like I think even I chatted to you about this before. Like the the way the algorithm is the way AI is moving. I think if they haven't already, they are the ones who scan your CVs, or before a human gets to like put their eyes on your CV, it's already been scanned by an AI. And there's a question of how is the AI, selecting this? If they take stats on who are the people that are most employed, might be, it could be that it's the Caucasian, it's the white person that's more employed, and might be that is those might be sift through and choose um, people from maybe a particular, might be white neighborhood or with a white sounding surname. And that's the kind of algorithm that the AI will use. The consciousness that the AI is using is already the messed up consciousness that's in the internet currently.
Yes, just like that. So how? Yeah. So as Africans, yeah, we need to. I don't know. We need to make our own technology products. Looks like
Yeah,
it.
like a pro-African AI.
Yeah. Yeah, viva,
Yeah.
viva, viva. That would be so entertaining. We should just make a black Twitter. Like everything, like the AI was just talk in black Twitter. Just be like, yes, no, 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 no. And we'll just be like, yes,
Being hella woke.
yes, yes. Oh my gosh, that would be so fun.
Beautiful to see. Yeah. Ah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, yes. Thank you for chatting with me about this.
So much fun.
Yes. Is there anything else that's on your mind about the future or anything that we were talking about today?
Um, yes, actually, I just remembered something. Like, I think I read like an article like not too long ago about how people, like kids' eyesight is getting worse, and it's because they are not outdoors. They are like always with a screen really close to their face, so the light from the screen, they're becoming short-sighted. And I've forgotten like how the article had explained things, but they say that the sunlight. So I think the yeah the sunlight kind of prevents short-sightedness. There is like an enzyme that's released that enables the yeah our cornea not to have to expand so much. So I'm not really explaining it badly, but basically kids being out in the sun prevents them from needing glasses later on in the future. So this is recent research that scientists have found out, because lots of kids are now wearing glasses than previous generations, and it's
Oh,
because of that. Yeah. So
okay.
yeah, it affects your physical health as well.
Oh my goodness. So I think the future, this is me. I am so certain that the future is people sitting in nature, eating organic, healthy plants mostly. But yeah, I'm not vegan anymore. But like healthy, nutritious food that's been grown in a like with regenerative agriculture. Um and outdoors, definitely outdoors, like outdoors, more socializing. um yeah, I really think like sitting having a picnic, with your family, like on a homestead. I think everyone needs to get a piece of land, a proper piece of land where they can farm and
Mm.
then make sure that they get the correct nutritious food, because like I know, because of this multi the not non GMO foods, yes, and how those are depleting every year. They get like worse and worse in nutrition, and that's not good for us. It's not good for our health. And so I think if when we take the power back from these multinational corporations and produce our own food, then yes, people will be happier, people will be healthier. So I think definitely health in terms, yes, improved health in terms of food and nutrition, and more outdoors. That's the vision of the future that I have, and more land for people. And I really hope that that's what happens, and you don't really have to work like corporate, kind of like an ending of corporate culture, because you're going to spend your whole life working for some evil man. And yeah, and he doesn't care about you and your family.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you give your whole life force to that guy. So no, I think like, people need to, like a de-industrialization kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that I also think that could be possible. Like already the cost of food is so high, cost of living is so high, it might force people into, especially people that live in rural areas, they might, start it off like very seriously producing all their food and depending less and less on, you know the governments and corporations to provide these things. Yeah, with the research coming out, I think research is always telling people, and more people are educated than they were in the past, so they might be more likely to read the research or listen to the scientists when they tell them, okay, you need to eat these kinds of food, this is the kind of lifestyle that you need. Yeah, so that might, like you see, like the research about the kids and their eyesight now, i think I think it was done in Singapore, and now the kids have to spend a lot of time outdoors since that research came out. So might be people listening to the research, might help them live that kind of beautiful euphoric life that you've just mentioned. An economic crisis, climate change, all those factors might, make people, yeah, we go back to kind of providing for ourselves and caring for our well-being. uh,
Yes.
yeah.
Because like in South Africa, we have an electricity crisis. It's a major problem. Eskom, which is the state-owned enterprise, is basically working at a deficit, and it's like billions and billions. It's like a there's a hole in South Africa's pockets, like in our economy, and it's quite complicated. I do recommend watching the rated interview. I don't know if you heard about this interview. It's a
Oh,
fire interview. This guy, he was the Eskom CEO, and he then the day he resigned, he had like an assassination attempt.
oh, someone tried to assassinate him.
Yeah, and it turns out that there's like Eskom cartels.
Hectic.
Yeah, like there's a whole cartel. There's a whole black market that works to keep Eskom incapacitated because they make a profit off of it, because they because of tenders and kickbacks and all of that. So it's crazy. So basically, it seems like the solution to that is that we need to move to renewable sources of energy. We need to move to solar and wind power. Like, experts are saying, like research is saying that we need to move to eco-friendly electricity because we can't be dependent on coal anymore. It's bad for the environment, and it's just to build another power station, to build more power stations is just economically unviable. It's actually cheaper to go solar than to
Yeah.
keep using coal. So with that, yeah.
And we have a lot of sun here in Africa. Like we shouldn't have any problems with generating our own solar power. Like we have a whole desert in the Sahara that could just be a bed of, like we could provide solar power for the whole world, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we hope that there's going to be an eco-friendly technological Africa that's powered by renewable energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think maybe South Africa will be leading in that aspect. Like you guys, like South Africa has been suffering with this electricity problem. So I think like a solar power revolution might start in South Africa.
Yeah, because we actually have to do it. Like, because you can't, I mean, there's talks of a 16-hour load shedding, like
But
stage 16. That's like most of the day. The economy can't function. And just after COVID, like the economy really took a hit, then another hit, and this is a massive hit. It's like we actually have to adapt or die kind of situation.
yeah,
Yeah, so we hope that um the government and or industry is gonna step in. I think industry has to step in, yeah, to say let's figure this out because the way the vaccine got rolled out in South Africa was it was like it the government did it, but it was also with kind of like the economy as with yeah with private companies as well. So I think private companies also kind of have to step in because it's yeah because it's also their livelihoods and
yeah,
so many people are dependent on those jobs like everyone is. So we really hope that there'll be a solution to the load shedding. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think it'll be a solar solution. Like yeah,
And it would be so exciting like if an African country leads in yeah in moving away from like toxic electricity, it would be such a nice story for Africa to yeah, like it would be Wakanda. South Africa would be Wakanda, you know? We're moving into the proper energy sources
oh,
and it would be just like a moment of triumph for everyone.
definitely big time. And with Russia withholding their natural gases and all of this and yeah, the West has also been suffering with some electricity problems. So they would, yeah, come back to Africa, but we would negotiate on our terms.
Yes. We must.
Africa would negotiate on her terms, and hopefully the African Union will back South Africa on that, you know?
Yeah, we really hope that there's this, the South African government can get itself together and seize the day.
Yes. It's an opportunity. They're on a, they're like in between a hard place and a rock. They
Yes.
have no option but to to make something work.
Yeah, it's but you know this is a creative situation, you know?
Yeah.
Crisis is an opportunity to get creative. So we need to get creative and we need to improve Africa's livelihood because yeah, Africa is really the richest country. And I'm gonna say Africa is a country. I know it's problematic, but but yes, as a people, like
We need to start thinking like this. Yeah, it's the
yeah,
only way as
yes,
well.
we're actually the richest. Like ironically, but
Yeah,
it's just not in the banks, you know? So we really need to think about African wealth being owned by African people. And yeah, that's what we want. That's what our leaders fought for in the struggle.
yes. Like if they came back from the dead, they would be so sad to see that this is still the Africa that's the same Africa that they like lost their lives fighting for is it hasn't changed. This exactly the same. We're still being manipulated by the West. We're still basically being colonized, you know, even though we seem to have independence. Like it would be quite sad. And yeah, it's time. I think it's time. And I feel like a lot of African nations and leaders are like speaking up. And like especially like also there was the I think the president of Congo was speaking to the French president recently, and he was like, yeah, you need if you want to keep having negotiations with us, you need to start respecting Africa, and you need to start speaking to us as equal and not
Yeah.
always with you being right and us being wrong in a patronizing and condescending way. That needs to change. And that's why Africa is preferring to do trade with China, because China is, meeting Africa at its level. I mean, they the way China negotiates with Africa, Africa feels appreciated and respected. Although there are also some problems. We are in a lot of debt with China. And yeah, I'm not saying China is the best right now, but I think in the way they're handling things, they're doing things better than the West, and that's why Africa is preferring to trade with China as opposed to the West.
Yeah.
But that aspect has to be that colonial thinking needs to stop.
It does.
Time, yeah.
Yeah. Africans are equal. Everyone's equal. Women are equal as well. Yes. So yeah, it does look exciting. Yeah, the possibility of trading with Africa, even trading with South America, or Latin America.
Yeah,
Yeah, like all
yeah.
brown people, we must just unite. And
Kind of uniting. That's like I'm getting that vibe that, like Saudi Arabia recently, the MBS, the Crown Prince, he said that he has no interest in pleasing America anymore. That America must show him what they have to offer for him to be able to, consider any negotiations that they have. And now he is friends with China, and he is friends with, with Russia. um and yeah, and I think he's in good terms with Africa as well. I don't think he has any problems with Africa. I think some African countries have. I mean, he's a problematic man, but it's nice to see like leaders of color like uniting.
yeah,
So yeah, or at least stand up for themselves and not tolerate any more bullying.
yes, no, we can't go back. And Africans are really, it seems like, with Afrobeat music and Amapiano, like, there is definitely a cultural renaissance going on.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
So, I think the spotlight is on Africa, and you see how while South Korea is doing with soft power, they're not, their international relations policy is to prefer to do more culture influence through movies and K-pop, the Korean wave. Yeah, so and it's such a cool way of gaining power because it's not hurting anyone, and everyone, the videos are amazing, the K-pop videos are amazing, the quality of the content is like unmatched. So it's just exciting, so I think we can learn from South Korea, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also that's how the West has kind of made us believe that everything West is good and everything might be Africa is bad, because they've had such a big platform in our media and our music and film and series. We're always watching white stories, white struggles, So it's nice to mix it up and see people of color more. Like even making that initiative, like ourselves, to watch more, you know, movies that have people of color, like Indian people, you know,
Mm-mm.
Indian people, African people. Yeah, and normalizing that too, because yeah, somehow that's kind of brainwashed us to think, oh, everything good is in the West. Oh, beautiful romances happen in the West. And, because it's just all we see all the time.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like they've programmed our subconscious minds, because it's through.
To, yeah, to want their narrative of life, to see their narrative of life as the ideal narrative. And because you're not represented, we think, oh, my life isn't like that. That just looks so glamorized. And yeah. I want to go live in the West because life there just looks so beautiful and the culture looks so beautiful, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not the case because
Oh,
there's extreme inequality. Like America is also very unequal. I know South Africa is unequal, but America is a first world country. They should not be as unequal as they are, and the healthcare is crazy. It's not. Yeah, it's too expensive. Um, and it's making a profit off of people who are sick. Like you shouldn't do that. Um, so they're not coming up with all the solutions, and they definitely portray themselves like the leaders of democracy, but they're not. You
no.
know, yeah. Even Trump, the way he was elected was so shady. So they're definitely not the leaders of democracy. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they're mostly the leaders of hypocrisy. They're definitely very hypocritical. They preach democracy, but the things that they're doing on the international stage is just so problematic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what they did to Iraq, for instance. Like Bush just decided to invade Iraq. Just he lied, basically lied that Iraq had anything to do with the 9/11, like the 9/11 bombings, and completely destroyed our whole country and,
Yeah.
and took advantage of their oils in the process. Like even recently that I saw like a video of someone in the military who was sent to Iraq under Bush's leadership. I think Bush was speaking, and he was like, "Bush, when are you gonna admit that you have blood of millions of Iraqi people on your hands, and you have traumatized so many people in my generation to go there for war, lying to us that they had something to do with 9/11 or terrorist activity, and now we are so traumatized. I've lost all my friends to this war. Millions of Iraqi people have lost their livelihoods, their homes, their lives. And when are you gonna ever come clean? This is like in 2022. He said this. When are you ever gonna, admit that this was a mess up on your part? Like, when are you gonna be accountable for all of this? So yeah, they are definitely not any custodians for democracy.
Yeah. And they're the biggest uh propagator of war crimes. Seriously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it has been shown and proven that 9/11 was an inside job. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if
Yeah.
that's actually what happened. Yeah.
So it's just it's crazy. Yeah, so I think definitely as brown people we need to unite, and we need to redefine leadership, and it shouldn't be through war that you are um getting power.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, and yeah, like those wars in the Middle East, that's a mess for like international relations, and also yeah, even in Africa, the Gaddafi dying.
It
um,
was all America doing that. And
yes, yeah,
and Syria and the revolution in Egypt. America was behind all of that.
yeah,
Yeah. They just took advantage of that. They you know, gave some rebellion groups some money to just mess things up on such a large scale. They did that in Afghanistan as well. The rise of the Taliban is all because of activities from the West. They What's happening in Palestine and in Israel, like that was UK's fault. They
uh,
just needed to bring all the Israeli people to Palestine and that was fine. They could have like stayed in their like play like places, but then Israel was just trying to push Palestine into really small like just taking more and more land. And yeah.
yeah. So there needs to be a change in the way you take power. Yeah, like like through that expansionist politics and just like taking land and territories. I I I wish that the leaders, global leaders, will see that you need to be moving forward in innovation, um, and not just innovation in terms of you know Apple producing Apple products. Like I mean, eco-friendly
Mm.
innovation that's going to make people's lives better, not more addicted. This technology needs to make us free. It needs to help us. It mustn't be for profit, or it mustn't be for profit at the detriment of our well-being. Yes. So yeah, and yeah, and that's how it's been played. The game of international relations. It's really just the biggest man with the biggest army. That's the biggest guy.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, I think, yeah, so we need to include women in the space and move away from that hard power and more into soft power. I think Africa can really benefit from that. And we could be cool, and we're not going to repeat history, because we can't repeat history. There can't be another world war, and it's still based on USSR versus America. Like, what? No, 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 like that can't happen again. Like, guys, get over it. They tell us to get over apartheid and over colonialism and slavery. They must get over their nostalgic uh, white men power type of politics. Like, get over that. That's not how it is. Most of the world is brown. So,
Yeah, exactly. Like
yeah.
feeling like your life is better than any other person's life. Like get over yourself. They need to get over themselves. The West needs to get over themselves.
Yeah.
Or yeah, white people basically, Russia and the West.
Yeah. And stop dragging us into your wars. Like, we don't want to be involved.
So
Anyways, okay, but thank you, Layla, for your insightful comments. They were like really appreciated.
such a good time. I learned so much, and yeah, these are conversations that we need to keep on having. They're interesting, informative, eye-opening, shocking at times. That
Yes.
as well, but also optimistic.
Mm, yes. Okay, cool. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you. I appreciate you so much. If you follow me on social media at Rise and Soul Shine and on Instagram, it's my Instagram handle is babes namaste. And I guess I'll add the links. But thank you so much. I really appreciate every single view I get. Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.